Well, over the years, the Toronto Blue Jays have missed out on some big-time free agents. Was it them being used as leverage? Were they in all these talks and just couldn't get over the hump? And is this year any different?
You are Locked On Blue Jays, your daily Toronto Blue Jays podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to Locked On Blue Jays, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now the #1 sports podcast network. Your team every day.
Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets used across the app. Download the app today. As always, I'm Brayden Iwasko. He's Carter First. You can find us on Twitter, Brayden5 Iwasko. Carter First, too, as well on our main Twitter account, @LockedOnJays. You can follow us on Instagram and TikTok, @LockedOnBlueJays. And if you're new here to YouTube, hit that subscribe button. It's one of those things, Carter. We talk about it all the time. We've talked about it the last 2 years. Have the Toronto Blue Jays just missed out on a bunch of free agents because they've been used as leverage? Or has it been that they just haven't been able to push those offers over the top? And has Toronto been a place that players wanted to come and play? It's a fair assessment. It's a fair argument to have and a debate to have, and one that we're going to have today, because what is going to happen with the 2026 roster? Will they be able to get free agents to come here to Toronto? It's sounding pretty good so far, but is that all just in the wind and people speculating, or is it known fact that the Blue Jays will get some of these top-end guys? So, Carter, it's an idea that came to you a few days ago that you wanted to have this conversation. So where do you want to start?
I think we just have to start with all of the talk that's been going on, all of the headlines of free agency. Because there is, unfortunately, not a lot of information coming out right now. So as podcasters, as guys that follow the Toronto Blue Jays, we're looking at literally every single thing. We're like fiends on the internet right now. Look for anything, any big name related to the Toronto Blue Jays. And every single article we're seeing is the Toronto Blue Jays are in on this guy. The Toronto Blue Jays are favorites to land Kyle Tucker. They're favorites to land Bichette. They're talking to Edwin Diaz. They're talking to Isiah. They're talking to pretty much everybody under the sun. But this feels super familiar. This feels like conversations that, with this being, our second year of the podcast and just being Blue Jays fans for our entire lives, it feels like conversations that we've had very similarly in the past. Kind of feels like some deja vu going on for the Toronto Blue Jays. So to start this off, I just kind of wanted to go into all of the players that the Toronto Blue Jays have been in talks with, not just this year, but the kind of the storylines that we've been hearing about last year and years previous. So just a few guys that I've kind of gone over, really just this last year, but I threw Shohei Ohtani in this one, obviously, as well, because that one was the worst of all of them. John Morosi, he is on the plane. He is coming to Toronto. Maybe he was coming to Toronto, but he was not coming to Toronto to stay. He was coming, just for a little tourist endeavor into the great downtown streets where the Toronto Blue Jays play by the Rogers Center. But that Shohei Ohtani one obviously sucks. Then there was Juan Soto. They were in talks with Juan Soto. Never really went down to the wire. They were teams amongst that interest with Juan Soto, but that one wasn't as heartbreaking. The Hiroki Sasaki one, that was another bad one. You make a trade for Miles Straw, which ended up working out pretty well for the Toronto Blue Jays. Miles Straw has been a fan favorite, doing some recruiting for the Toronto Blue Jays as well, which definitely cannot hurt. But and how invested they were in the Hiroki Sasaki sweepstakes, for how sure of a deal they kind of thought it was to get Hiroki, to go out and make a move literally at that time was just to get more international bonus pool money to get Hiroki Sasaki, and unable to get that done. That's another one. Corbin Burns with the Tim's Cup fiasco. He had a Tim Hortons coffee cup, so that must have meant he was coming to the Toronto Blue Jays. Unfortunately not. Max Fried was the perfect fit at once upon a time. He was a lefty that would have complemented this starting rotation. That did not work out. Blake Snell, very early on in the 2025 offseason, was linked to the Toronto Blue Jays. Teoscar Hernandez to make things right for all the wrongdoings the front office did to Teoscar, like Willie Adames, because Bo wasn't very good. There was talks with Bregman. Those are just a few from the last season that the Toronto Blue Jays have been in on. And how many of those players did they get? Not one of them. I guess there is a consolation. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. was supposed to be on a million different teams. He obviously did come back to the Toronto Blue Jays, so I did want to throw that in there. And then this year, we like Edwin Diaz, Isiah, like we've talked about all of these guys. So for you, is this just another scenario where we're in on all these players? The Toronto Blue Jays, fifth highest team in payroll, are being used as leverage as a team that does go out and spend money? Are they being used to kind of help other teams and other players' cases out to, be used as like a little bit of a dealing tool. So try to get a little bit more AAV, maybe a little bit extra year of a term, whatever it may be. Are they using the Toronto Blue Jays to get better contracts from other organizations?
Man, you know what? People like to go so far one way or so far the other way, right? The whole leverage thing, to me, is just a bunch of BS, to be honest. Teams are going to sign where they will. They are going to try to get teams to outbid other teams to drive up their price. That's how baseball contracts have always worked, and most contracts in any league, that's how they work. So, no, I don't think the Blue Jays are strictly being used as leverage here. But at the end of the day, I'm sort of a little bit on the other side as well, because I don't believe that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to go out and get every single player that has been said that might come to Toronto. No, that's not going to happen. I think, honestly, the thought process of getting Bichette and Kyle Tucker in the same year, to me, it's just not going to happen. I don't believe that is going to happen. As much as I want it to, I'm not sitting here, with the champagne bottle in hand, ready for both these guys to come to Toronto. No, I think they get one of them, and they're going to get a starting pitcher. They're going to get some bullpen pieces. But I don't think it's going to be every single top-end guy. It may not even be, in the talks of all these starting pitchers, it may not even be a top-end starting pitcher. I do believe that either Bichette or Kyle Tucker, one of them will be in Toronto, and I have to go with Bichette if I'm thinking and just how all of this is going to go. So it's tough. I'm a little bit torn because, no, it's not just leverage. It's how the MLB works. And I do, in my heart, believe that this team is going to go out and try to make bids for these big players to try to get them. But at the end of the day, it's not just who the Blue Jays are talking to. It's about who the other 29 teams are talking to. And if they can outbid the Toronto Blue Jays, are the Toronto Blue Jays willing to outbid everybody on everybody? Probably not. So it's an interesting question. And it's tough because as much as I want to sit here and be a Toronto Blue Jays believer in the sense that everybody wants to come to Toronto and everybody will come to Toronto, I wish that's the case. But, after doing this podcast for 2 years and knowing how this league works, I just don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's business. Like, you're going to use other rivals, other teams, other organizations to your benefit if you're a player in that situation. You're not going to go into those meetings and say, yeah, there's naturally nobody hitting up my phone. If I don't sign here, I got nothing. So yeah, give me a blank check. Give me exactly what I want. No, if you're going to talk to Aaron Boone in that front office, you're going to go to the Yankees, you're going to say, oh, the Blue Jays they're trying to pay me this much for this term. And the Phillies are in my year, but also the Dodgers are another team that's been talking to me. You're going to go and you're going to use other teams against each other. That's just how it is. As a player, you're going to want to get what you think you are worth, whether that is 30 million, 20 million, 2 million, whatever it ends up being. You're trying to get what the best contract is for yourself and your own situation, whether that is money, whether that's a perfect fit with which position you're playing at, for how long you're playing there, for what you project for the future. There's so many different things that go into it. And you're definitely using other teams as leverage to a certain degree. But if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, we kind of talked about this before, but why wouldn't you want to be in on all the best players? Why wouldn't you want the opportunity to sign all the best players? And for sure, the Toronto Blue Jays aren't blindly just throwing blank checks out for Kyle Tucker, Ranger Suarez, Framber Valdez, and now all of a sudden they're paying $4 billion for these players. And that's just not realistic. At some point, you have to be logical. You have to be realistic. If the Toronto Blue Jays can sign Kyle Tucker, Bichette, Ranger Suarez for the contract that they're accustomed, they're kind of just ready to hand out to these guys and they're willing to pay, for sure they're going to sign all of these guys. But they're going to get outpriced on some different players. They're going to have different evaluations on some players. Maybe, for example, like I'll just use Adrian Houser as just a guy I'm thinking of. Maybe the Toronto Blue Jays don't view him as a starting pitcher in their top 5 whatsoever, but another team like, I don't know, the Tampa Bay Rays just view Adrian Houser as maybe one of their rotation arms. So it's how you evaluate players. It's teams fit. Like, there's so many different things that go into it. So I don't think that the Toronto Blue Jays are being used as leverage per se. Like, there's no chance that any of these top free agents sign with the Blue Jays, because there's a lot different this year than there is last year. There's a lot more going for the Toronto Blue Jays right now than there was in previous seasons. But I think where this kind of comes to a forefront is that people's expectations get a little bit too crazy. And they believe that the Toronto Blue Jays are going to sign Kyle Tucker, Ranger Suarez, Edwin Diaz. They're going to get Robert Suarez and Raisel Iglesias as well, because why not? If your expectations are that high going into free agency, you're just kind of letting yourself be set up to be put down. So I think tempering expectations is a big thing there. And I think the Toronto Blue Jays, while they are on a lot of these players, they're not going to land every single player that you're seeing in these headlines.
Yeah, Carter, it's a great point, and it goes back to exactly what me and you talked about last season, and what we preached to everybody last season is don't let those expectations get too high, but don't also be completely out on this team. Keep everything tempered right now. We want to see what this team will do, and you have the full right to get upset that they didn't do enough. When it comes to this offseason, you have the full right to be over the moon and excited about what they did do. But right now, we're sort of just in a waiting game. And if you sit here and won't be happy with this team unless they have Kyle Tucker, Bichette, whoever, Edwin Diaz, throw names out, whatever, Michael King, if they don't have all of these guys.
The trade for Shohei, too, actually. He's coming over. He's finally coming now. You like what they had going there during the World Series.
Yeah, if you're sitting here expecting all of that, I mean, you're just setting yourself up to be disappointed because that's not going to happen. They're not going to go out and spend $120 million per season on 3 guys. That's just not going to happen. So I hope that everybody is excited and they are paying attention to all the little details and news. And, that's why they tune in, some of you tune into our podcast so you can get the most up-to-date information. And we're happy to do that. And we're happy to sit here and speculate with you guys. But at the end of the day, we're going to give you our honest thoughts about, hey, is too much too much? Can this team viably do this? Because we're not going to sit here. We're not trying to, clickbait anybody into saying that, oh, we think the Toronto Blue Jays are going to get this player, this player, this player, this player, this player. That's unrealistic. I mean, we're not, Carter, I wouldn't even enjoy doing that, right? If I'm sitting here, why am I getting myself worked up about a season that will never happen because this team won't have 9 guys that are going to make the All-Star team? Like, come on. I don't know. It's frustrating. It's frustrating as a fan sitting here too, because Carter talked about this last episode, and I was sort of laughing about it the last couple days. It's sort of why the MLB is the worst offseason, but also the best offseason, because things don't happen right away. It gives fans a lot of time to sit here and speculate. And Carter, me and you've been doing a good job at sitting here speculating, haven't we?
Yeah, that's all we can really do right now, unfortunately. Like, we can reflect on the 2025 season, but even though it has been a little while, I'm not fully ready to do that still, at least the World Series aspect of it. Yes, we can go back and draw on how many good moments that there were during the regular season. That's what free agency is for. You got to have some fun with it. You got to speculate. And I'm going to end this segment off with 2 things. I kind of brought this up before, but Toronto Blue Jays fans should be happy that at least we're in on and in contention for a lot of these free agents. There's a lot of teams that don't get to speculate. Kyle Tucker gets to the market, the free open market, and teams like, oh, well, he's just not coming here. We can't pay that. There's just no way. At least the Toronto Blue Jays, you're in on Bichette, you're in on Kyle Tucker, you're talking to Ranger Suarez, you're talking to all of these top premium free agents. And another thing is that, for example, with the Kyle Tucker, with the Bichette, if you sign Kyle Tucker or Bichette, you're not going to be as aggressive for the other guy. You're not going to be as inclined to overpay for another guy because you already have that one juggernaut that you did sign. Yeah. So, in other words, if, say, Bichette gets signed by a team, maybe they are more aggressive to Kyle Tucker. Maybe they do throw a little bit more money at Kyle Tucker because they now need him more. And there isn't that backup option of having Bichette. It's like with these, with the relief pitchers. They're not going to go out and sign Ranger Suarez and Raisel Iglesias and Ryan Helsley and Edwin Diaz. They're having backup options. They probably have one guy that they really, really like. And if he goes, they go on to the next guy. They have backup plans because we kind of saw it with Shohei Ohtani, and you can't have a backup plan for Shohei Ohtani, but you didn't get Ohtani. And then where did you go? It almost felt like the Toronto Blue Jays were lost in that sense. You want a team to have a backup plan. You want them to have a way to pivot. And it's a lot tougher to pivot from guys like, Juan Soto and Shohei Ohtani. And while it would be tough to pivot from guys like Bichette, Kyle Tucker, Ranger Suarez, Framber Valdez, you get the picture. You still have other options and you still have other plans just in case everything doesn't go according to your blueprint, which it never does in Major League Baseball.
Carter, that was a big moment for us going into the 2024 season is us understanding that there was no backup plan and this team did not do a good enough job planning for the future in regards to Shohei Ohtani not being a Toronto Blue Jay. Moving into 2025, we saw that happen. We saw the plan B's, the plan C's come into effect. Now, hopefully in 2020, going into 2026, we see this team's plan A happen. And Carter, why is this a destination or why isn't this a destination that players want to come to? We'll talk about that as we get into the next segment. Plus, little Hall of Fame ballot for one of the Toronto Blue Jays, a guy that, I'm sure all of us sit here and still love to this day. So we'll talk about all that as the show continues right here on Locked On Blue Jays. Today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. I've been placing bets like crazy. I love placing them on the NFL, and I've been even getting back into the NBA. You guys, I'd say this every episode, not a huge NBA guy for a long time. I think 2014 and 16, I was huge into NBA. I wouldn't miss games. I'd be playing the video game, all that. But I've fallen out of love with it. But the sports betting has brought me back, and the NBA, there's really just no better place to bet on NBA action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you miss the start of a game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team's making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets to use when your first $5 bet wins. That first $5 bet has to win, so make sure you do take a look. Take a game you know for sure this team's going to win. You don't got to win a ton of money. Just make sure it wins. Head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So, Carter, why is Toronto now a much more desirable location than it was even a year ago on this day? I mean, we look back at all the guys that were missed. Why do you think the Blue Jays are being talked about so much more favorably this season? I shouldn't even ask you this question. They just made the World Series. They were 2 outs away from a World Series. But it's not just that. I think winning will do that. It always does. And being in a situation where you are that close to a victory will always matter. But it's also a little bit about the clubhouse. It's about the environment. It's about what the players say to each other when they talk at, even by text. Your buddies with some guys in the other team. Maybe you're texting, hey, this place is fantastic. Carter, why do you think some of those reasons are outside of obviously making the World Series?
Yeah, the World Series is the biggest one. Like, at the end of the day, like, money talks, but a lot of it is winning. Like, winning solves a ton of problems. Winning solves a ton of clubhouse issues, just a ton of just interpersonal issues. Obviously, with the revenue side of things, you're going to make a lot more money. Just ask Edward Rogers in the 2025 season compared to the 2024 season. So in terms of, like, why would people want to come here? Obviously, the World Series thing and just being a competitive baseball team is going to be a lot better. And that's kind of what we wanted to lead that last segment into this segment, is that things are a lot different this year, whereas maybe the Toronto Blue Jays were being used as leverage in that 2025 offseason because they didn't have a lot going for them at that time. But Bichette just had a horrible year. George Springer looked like he was done for completely. It was pretty much the Vladimir Guerrero Jr. show and what was going to happen around Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You looked at the prospect pool. It was a bottom 5 prospect pool in all of baseball. When you're looking at things now, and I'm not even going into the clubhouse stuff yet, just having Vladimir Guerrero Jr. locked up for 14 more years, that was an uncertainty the Blue Jays didn't have going into that season. Bichette, as much as he isn't for sure coming back, that Bichette is Bichette, and right now he's the favorite to come back again, in quotation, like the air quotations, favorite to come back to the Toronto Blue Jays. Will that happen? We will still have to see. Then you got guys like Trey Savage, who you drafted and is looking like a perennial stud. Again, we'll see what happens with that. But Addison Barger, a guy that looks very good as well. You look at guys like Ernie Clement, kind of rejuvenating his career. You look at Louis Varland, some of the guys that they got at this even trade deadline who are here for a very long time. So just in terms of the future of the Toronto Blue Jays as well, and like their direction of a team, that is something that is a lot more clear as well. And then just looking at the clubhouse stuff, we have to obviously go into that as well. This isn't the exact reason why Shane Bieber took that player option, but that definitely had to factor into it. His wife said that she found her love for baseball once again with the Toronto Blue Jays, taking that player option, a very team-friendly deal. So part of the clubhouse has to go into that, just being with all those guys being very easy to talk to, very kind, obviously, like a brotherhood. And then just with the family stuff as well, the wives obviously loving and hanging out at the clubhouse outside of baseball, their kids all being relatively the same age. It's a very attractive family-orientated location, especially for players that maybe are starting their young families like Trey Savage, like the Addison Bargers, even for guys like Max Scherzer, who have a million kids still running around having a good time over there as well. And we can talk about Dunedin, how nice of a spot that is to be in, January, February, and then into the spring training as well. You're in Florida, you're not right in Toronto, at least not until the end of March. You get to avoid most of the cold season. Living in Winnipeg, we get a lot of that. Toronto gets similar, obviously, temperatures to what we get here. So avoiding that is definitely a big thing, and just how complex and how much money was invested into those training facilities. A lot of players saying they are some of the best in all of baseball. So in terms of winning, if you want a winning team, you got the Toronto Blue Jays. If you want good facilities, you got the Toronto Blue Jays. If you want talent, you got the Toronto Blue Jays. If you want, the power of friendship as well, you have the Toronto Blue Jays as well. So if you're looking at comparable seasons, there is a ton of attractive reasons to come to the Toronto Blue Jays, and they should be looking to compete for an AL East title, a playoff title, and hopefully a World Series championship once again, as for the first time since '93, but being in the World Series once again since last year.
Yeah, Carter, you hit that one out of the park. And I think the one main thing that I take away from that, and I think shouldn't be overlooked, is getting Vladimir Guerrero Jr. locked up. I think that might be, if not the biggest reason, one of them. It shows that you have a commitment to win. It's not just a 1-year blip. You do well. Oh, we'll try to push this next year. No, you have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. through his prime. You want to take advantage of every single second that you have this all-star player in your franchise. And what that tells other players within the game of baseball, including Bo Bichette, is that we are dedicated to winning and having a winning culture, not just for this year or next year. So if you sign here, you're not going to throw away 4 years of your contract. You're going to be competitive throughout all of that. And you brought up Louis Varland, a guy that with a lot of term left on his contract as well. There are little pieces like that. The young Trey Savage still with so much time on his.
I didn't even list half of my guy. Alejandro Kirk is locked up for another 4 years. Anthony Santander, I know he didn't have a good year. That guy's locked up for a while as well. Andres Gimenez. Just for pitchers, if you're a pitcher coming to the Toronto Blue Jays, yes, I know the bat. I'm the first guy that will tell you the bat is not where we want it to be. But if you put this guy at shortstop, he's a floor is a 3.5 WAR player. This is probably, again, he's not even a shortstop. And if he moves there, he's one of the best defensive shortstops in all of baseball. So if you're a pitcher, and that's not even just stopping there, that's Daulton Varsho in the outfield. That's Ernie Clement at third base, wherever. That's Addison Barger if you have him in the outfield with that power, that cannon of an arm that he has. Nathan Lucas, pretty good defensively. Is he on the team? Again, whatever. But you have a bunch of guys that, Alejandro Kirk being the catcher, calling your games. You have so many guys in your infield that are so good defensively. And then we didn't even talk about the fan atmosphere as well and how unbelievable the fans are throughout not only just the playoffs, but even the regular season. You're getting 40,000 on average down the last 3 months of that regular season in 2025. So the fans are ridiculous. If you're a player, maybe Tuesday night, you have him a loony dog. There's little incentives all over the ballpark for reasons to come to Toronto. And hey, if you come to Toronto, open invite on the pod. So if you want to come on the pod too, you want a little more incentive, Locked On Blue Jays has your back here.
Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be reason number one. They get to come on the Locked On Blue Jays podcast, for sure. But no, you're nail on the head, Carter. There are so many attractive options of why to come to Toronto, and a lot of people will say the weather, but if you're in Toronto in the
taxes,
summer,
that's the main thing. Weather taxes, I hear all the time.
Yeah, and if you're here in the summer, for baseball, the weather's beautiful. We're from Manitoba, right? Everybody talks about how cold it is. Well, in the summers, it's 35 out Celsius. It's nice. I don't know what you're talking about. In the winters, yeah, it's cold. But a lot of these guys don't live here in the winter anyway. They go back home. They go back to wherever. So don't worry about it. Taxes, okay. Not much we can do about that one.
LA has taxes. There's a bunch of different places.
Sure.
If you want to go, maybe to the Rangers or something, or you go to Florida, there's some spots that definitely benefit you more. But the Toronto Blue Jays usually can kind of override that with just paying a little bit more in the open market. If you have to overpay slightly, or
in bonuses. Yeah,
there's ways around it. Is what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so much they can do, and usually they do because they don't want that to be the factor of why players decide to come here or not to come here. So again, a lot of you guys know this. You've watched this team. You may live in Toronto or in Canada. You understand, right? The love of the game. When your team is good, man, this country really rallies behind it. And you know what? There's people that listen to this podcast, Carter, that aren't from Canada. There's guys from the States, guys from all over the world that tune in, and we're so thankful for that. But that just means there are so many Blue Jays fans, not only in Canada, but around the world, in the United States, in these other parts of the world.
Yeah, just ask Seattle when the Toronto Blue Jays go there, even like New York, Boston. Just the Toronto Blue Jays travel so well as well. And with obviously Vancouver being right by Seattle, closer to Seattle than you are to Toronto, like it's like they take over when they played in the playoffs there. Like the Seattle Mariners were selling Blue Jays merch. Like that's a crazy statement. I would be livid if I was a Mariners fan, in Seattle when that was happening. If I just, trying to get a beer at the game and then I see a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. jersey, probably wouldn't be too excited about that. But that's just the impact that fans all across Canada, not even just in Canada, we have even listeners for the pod. We have in Europe, we have in the States, all over the place. I think we have a couple from Australia as well. So just the demographics that not only this podcast, but the Toronto Blue Jays reach in general, it's absolutely insane. So there's fans all over the world love baseball, and it should be the exact same for players. You come to Toronto, and you definitely feel that from the entire fan base.
Absolutely, and I think we've done enough advocating here for Toronto. I don't know if they're going to raise the Locked On Blue Jays flag and be like, these guys are the advocates for Canada, but we try to do our part.
We don't even have to advocate for it. You can just come to Toronto, and then it will just show you everything you need to know.
Yeah, again, it's hard not to love this country, love this team, and love the atmosphere and the baseball it brings. So yeah, we're happy to do that once in a while, and we want to show our appreciation for not only all of you that listen to this podcast, but all the Blue Jays fans, all the Blue Jays, everybody that comes here. It's an absolute blast. So Carter, we do want to take a break. We want to talk about a guy that's potentially going into the Hall of Fame, at least on the ballot. We'll bring that up when we come back after this break. So, Carter, Edwin Encarnacion is on the 2026 Hall of Fame ballot. I mean, what a career this guy had. His time in Toronto, just unbelievable. Still showing his face around once in a blue moon. Just something cool to see, more or less. Even if he doesn't get in, just to be on that ballot is something cool to watch for all the Blue Jays fans.
Yeah, whether he gets in on his first try, I really don't think he will, unfortunately. But whether he does or not, it's a good guy to have around the Toronto Blue Jays clubhouse. We saw him pretty much all the time in 2025, talking to Vladdy, talking to whoever, having those interpersonal relationships. Pretty good guy to listen to in the clubhouse. He's joined by a bunch of first-timers like Howie Kendrick, Daniel Murphy's on this list, Hunter Pence. Probably does not get in. You got guys like Carlos Beltran, and then obviously like some steroid guys like the Manny Ramirez, the Alex Rodriguez, a bunch of guys that are going to be controversial. I love Edwin Encarnacion. I'll always remember the 2016 home run. I'll always remember his tenure in totality with the Toronto Blue Jays. I just think when you look at this list and you look at some of the Hall of Famers that aren't in the Hall of Fame already, at least, off their first ballot, having multiple tries, as long as you get over the 5% threshold, you can continue to stay on that Hall of Fame ballot. I don't think he gets in first try. Probably don't think he gets in second try, but that's not taking away anything that Edwin did throughout his career. Just what an acknowledgement to even be on the Hall of Fame ballot to try to get into that Hall of Fame. Incredible career.
Yeah, Carter. And when he was ranked on this ballot, they do like a ballot ranking of sort of where all these guys land. He would rank around 16th on this ballot. So that's not good enough odds to get in. I hear a lot of conversations being rolled out of Hall of Very Good. Is that somewhere you would place Edwin Encarnacion, or do you think maybe in some of his final years he could sneak in?
I think he's like, if there was a middle ground of like, if he's just over the Hall of Very Good, then I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. I think if there was like a Hall of Great, like maybe if you want to do that, like that's where I'd put Edwin Encarnacion. Again, no disrespect. Like you can still be an unbelievable baseball player and not make the Hall of Fame. Like there's some talks about if you want a more real life example, a player playing right now. I guess not a real life example. These guys are real human beings, believe it or not. But a present example is Kyle Schwarber. People are talking about whether he should be on the Hall of Fame list or not. And is home run power enough? Again, different situations, but is that enough to get into the Hall of Fame? Like Kyle Schwarber just hit 56 home runs. Like this is a player that is a very good baseball player, but does he get into the Hall of Fame? It's probably not. It's a different story. So with Edwin, again, so many Toronto Blue Jays memories. One of my favorite players growing up, like as a kid, just watching him throughout those glory years with Jose Bautista, kind of the Bash brothers. I know when Josh Donaldson came, that three-headed monster, you were a massive fan of Josh Donaldson, obviously Edwin as well, though. So yeah, it's a lot of good times and a lot of good memories when you look at guys like Jose Bautista and Edwin Encarnacion.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll go down as all-time Blue Jays, probably up there in the rankings for everybody. But sometimes that's just not enough. You need to, eclipse certain milestones in a career, and you have to do that in so many different categories, and it just not quite there for Edwin. But a huge hat tip to him. We love Edwin Encarnacion. He will always be a staple in what, Carter, our childhoods, right? Our teen years. And for some of you, you were probably adults, but for us, we were mid to late teens at that point.
I wonder how many conversations that Edwin forced parents to have about getting a parrot for how many home runs he hit, with the parrot porch that he had running around the bases.
Yeah.
I know I was almost one of them. Almost asked my parents for a bird, but yeah, that was going to be the easiest no of all time. If I was
really, you don't think Rio would have got you a parrot?
No, I think, my dad, Randy, he might be a bird guy. I
He's
did ask him, actually. That was one that went over his head and went straight to the boss of the house at that point.
He does have Buddy now, though, so.
He does have Buddy, not quite a bird, but I think Buddy would do some damage to that bird if we did have one. But I don't know, parrots get a little crazy. You might be saying some crazy things during the Jays games. Like imagine we say Lonnie sucks. Like that's not something. World Series Game 7, no thanks. Let's get the bird out of the house.
Oh, I love it. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. A little something different from us, but sometimes you just want to sit there and chat ball a little bit, and that's a little bit what today was. We're hoping to have some bigger episodes coming for you guys throughout this offseason. A ton more. I mean, we're here every single day. So we hope you guys enjoy everything that we put out. And we'll be back with you tomorrow. No days missed here.